Hi, good morning.
Welcome to another webinar. Last week, we had a very successful webinar on SD-WAN. However, from our attendees, we had some people who found it a little technical. And I understand where they're coming from. Someone like myself, who's not very technical. I mean, Ronald, the first time I heard of SD-WAN, I really thought it was a disease, frankly. So I think what we want to do in this webinar is almost explain SD-WAN in common language so people can understand that it's actually software that's embedded within a router that allows or provides benefits in terms of connectivity. So Ronald, without covering anything else, over to you and take us through your innovative way of explaining SD-WAN, which I really found very useful.
Great. So what we are going to do is we're going to be explaining SD-WAN and what the man in the street needs to know about it. So we're going to use simple analogies. But let's start off with Fusion Broadband. Fusion Broadband provides SD-WAN, and we're actually the proud winner of the 2020 IBM Beacon Award for infrastructure services. This is an international award, and we beat many of other infrastructure services providers into second and third place. So when we look at it, and this is the explanation that the technical guys give you, and I'm just giving it to you to show you how complex and difficult it is to understand the topic when people tell you what SD-WAN is. So this is from Gartner. Gartner is the biggest IT consulting firm on planet Earth, and they explain SD-WAN as having these four characteristics. They say it must have multiple connection types. This includes fiber and wireless as an example. It says it must have the ability to do dynamic path selection. It also says it needs a simple interface which you use to configure and manage. And then it has the ability to chain third-party services such as VPNs, WAN optimization controllers, firewalls, and web gateways. So what does this really mean, and who really understands this? So I'm going to go into an analogy and explain what SD-WAN is. But first of all, I'm just going to explain what a typical business connection is. So a typical business connection's got an ISP, which provides the internet connection. It has got a router, which is typically the way that we access from our local area network the internet. And the fundamental issue about this is if you're a typical business connected, internet connected business, when your ISP fails or you lose your connection to the ISP, you stop working. When you stop working, your employees also stop working, your customers stop being served, and your business stops making money. So we all know about Eskom load shedding. So what I'm going to do is explain how power outages are very similar to communication outages. So when we talk about Eskom load shedding and power outages, we all know that to deal with these outages, we use either generators or inverters. Generators and inverters kick in when the power fails, and we actually effectively provide our own power. So how does load shedding work as we've all experienced it, and how do we actually equate it to communications failures? Well, we use either a generator or an inverter, and they have a different way of working. So first of all, when you have a generator, the power fails, you roll out the generator, you switch it on, you reconnect all of your equipment, whatever you're utilizing, you start the generator up and you start working again on that generator. The other way you can do it is using an inverter. Inverter works differently. It actually fails over immediately. So if you've got your computer connected to it or any other device, your TV, some other type of appliance, and there's a Eskom load shedding event, you don't stop working. You actually carry on working, and you actually don't notice that your computer link fails or anything else fails. So that's the difference between a generator and inverter. Now, SD-WAN is exactly the same. You can get SD-WAN that works like a generator, and you can get SD-WAN that operates like an inverter. So when you get SD-WAN that operates as a generator, you lose your connection, you have to reset up everything, and you start working again. So examples of generator type SD-WANs are typically the ones that you get that are sold with firewalls. You will definitely notice a minimum of 30 seconds, maybe up to 4 minutes of downtime where you lose connection to the internet before it comes back. Then you get the inverter type solutions. Now, Fusion SD-WAN actually provides you a inverter type solution, and you actually fail over immediately. So when there is a link failure, you actually don't notice it when you're working. It is instantaneous. And if you're working on a transaction, you carry on with that transaction without noticing that you've got any downtime. So if we take it one step further, you get actually two types of inverters. You get something called a true sine wave and a modified sine wave. And the modified sine wave is the fake one. So for example, if you attach computers to a modified sine wave inverter, your computer will over a period of time start getting damaged. So if you've got computer equipment, you want to actually buy yourself a true sine wave inverter. SD-WAN's got much the same thing. You'll get SD-WAN with proper quality of service, and you'll get SD-WAN with fake quality of service. So the only way that you can get quality of service that works correctly is if your SD-WAN provides you crystal clear voice, as what we do with the Fusion solution. So what we have with the SD-WAN connection and an edge device is now we've got two connections. We've typically got a wireless connection and a fiber connection. And between those two, we have close to 100% uptime. When either one of those fails, we carry on working over the alternative one without noticing that there's been a failure of one. Fusion takes it one step further, and it aggregates the bandwidth of both the links. So if you've got a wireless link of 20 megabits per second and your fiber link of 30 megabits per second, you get up to 50 megabits per second as you're connecting to it. So if you're downloading a large file, you can download it at 50 megabits per second. So what's the alternative when you don't actually have an SD-WAN at all? Well, you know, when you're at home and you don't have a generator or an inverter, the only thing that you can do is you can braai. You can actually then use you can fire up your braai, you can put wood, charcoal, and you can make yourself some chops or boerewors. That's it. If you're in a business and you have a connection failure, your employees go and sit on the veranda, they smoke outside in the street, they actually don't work. Now, some people have something called router failover scripts. Well, these router failover scripts comparatively to SD-WAN is very much close to braai. You might as well not use it. So why is it important to improve your internet experience? So it's not only about your having multiple connections. One of the important services that you actually utilize before you actually connect to the internet is something called a name resolution. So for an example, if you are going to Facebook, the internet doesn't work on names. The internet doesn't natively know that your connection to Facebook has got an IP address, which is a certain number. So to get to that, we use something called domain name resolution, which actually allows you to convert Facebook to an IP address and connect it. So if you are going to have a rock solid experience, it doesn't help that you just have a rock solid experience around your connectivity. You also need a rock solid name resolution ability. So for example, if you've got an inverter at home and you've got multiple devices, you're going to connect a strip plug to your inverter so that you can have multiple devices working at the same time. So what Fusion Broadband does for name resolution is they basically give you a strip plug. They allow you to use multiple name resolutions at the same time. So typically we use up to 3 name resolutions at the same time. And if any one of them fails, you'll get the answer correctly from any of the other 2. Doing this combination has also got the benefit that it makes the name resolution process up to 240% times faster. So not only is it more reliable, it's actually faster as well. So one of the other things around SD-WAN is how do we operate SD-WAN to make it faster and a better experience for you from your normal router. So we all know that if you're traveling on a freeway or a highway, we don't have freeways in South Africa anymore since the toll roads came up, but we've got, if you're on a highway and you've got there's 2 lanes as an example, the traffic flowing over that highway is going to be slower than if you had 3 lanes or 4 lanes, just basically because it can handle more cars. So with SD-WAN, we do exactly the same thing. Compared to a normal internet connection, an SD-WAN connection is actually a multi-lane highway. It can handle more cars, it can send more traffic. So that's one of the benefits for SD-WAN. It's like a multi-lane highway for your internet. The next thing is, how do we actually make 2 providers work? Well, there's some magic sauce involved. For example, when you actually are enabling something like MPLS, you don't actually have that magic sauce to be able to connect to it. We operate and utilize the ability to actually make 2 providers work instantaneously using something called a hub and spoke mechanism. The hub and spoke mechanism is something particularly to some SD-WAN implementations. And for example, a normal business connection, either that's using MPLS, which is very expensive, typically does not have that magic sauce. So the other thing that Fusion Broadband is, it has a secret recipe. Now, we all know Colonel Sanders, who built the KFC franchise, used a recipe of secret herbs and spices. Well, Fusion Broadband has a very similar secret recipe of herbs and spices, but it's technical ingredients. And those technical ingredients is Intel, Linux, and salt. Well, Intel, we all know who Intel is. We've utilized their chips extensively. Now, what people don't know is that Intel has done lots of work over the last few years in making their processors integrate with their network controllers. So if you use Intel as a chipset and you use their network controllers, you actually get a very efficient device. So not a lot of networking equipment out there is built on Intel. They are typically built on alternative platforms. Those alternative platforms aren't as good as Intel. The next thing that we use is we call something called salt. Now, salt is also a very well-kept secret, and salt is the biggest IT automation platform on earth. It is utilized all over the place in enterprises, and it is the most stable and most reliable automation platform. Fusion Broadband automates everything, and we automate everything with salt, and we automate it with the best on planet Earth. Then the final thing is, we all know that all cloud servers are basically built on Linux and the Linux kernel. So we use the latest stable version of the Linux kernel. And the latest stable version of the Linux kernel has got lots of network optimization that actually combines all of the abilities and functions that we have into a very secret recipe that makes our SD-WAN that more reliable and better. Well, when we get to automation, and the way to explain automation, we think about Tesla with their electric cars. So one of the biggest things that Tesla did is not only give us electric cars, they also gave us something called autopilot. If you've got a Tesla car, you can actually put it on autopilot. So besides you have an electric car, you've actually got a totally different driving experience because you've got autopilot. You can basically drive down the road and the car is helping you drive. It's helping you prevent accidents. It's preventing you from driving at high speed into the back of a truck by braking for you. So in our solution that we've got for our internet connectivity, we have an autopilot effectively. It effectively drives your internet it sees that you've got something like packet loss, and it actually applies a mitigation for you to make your experience better. Finally, we've got security and threats, which are a very big thing. So firewalls typically are basically just a wall, and anybody can climb over a wall. And with the latest experiences that we've had, especially around America, where Microsoft's been hacked, SolarWinds has been hacked, and it's a very prevalent problem at the moment. The problem with all of this traditional legacy solutions is that they just provided a wall that anybody can climb over. But with Fusion Broadband, we apply something called threat intelligence. You can view threat intelligence as an electric fence on that wall. It's basically going to say, hey, I'm not going to allow you to climb over this wall. I'm actually going to give you an electric shock to try and prevent you from doing it. So we actually provide threat intelligence, and our threat intelligence is actually updated regularly on a daily basis. So we actually know the scabengus that are climbing over the wall, who they are, where they're from. And so our threat intelligence is a lot better than just a normal electric fence. It is actually an intelligent electric fence. Finally, when we actually get to Fusion Broadband, who are we? So we've been around for over 10 years. We've actually on our 8th generation of fully automated SD-WAN software, which we developed over that 10 years. We originally originated in Australia, but then went into the other Asian countries. And now we're in South Africa as well as the UK. So Fusion is mostly utilized by managed service providers, who are the IT companies that provide services to businesses. And one of the big use cases is to provide something called private WANs. So if you've got multiple sites in your business, for example, stretched across Johannesburg, Cape Town, or Durban, we can link all of those sites together across broadband internet using something called private WANs. And we do that very well, and we do that securely. The other use cases for voice customers in Australia, there is one utilized as a managed service provider of our software that has got 3,500 voice-only customers. And that basically wraps up our presentation on SD-WAN. Kitesh, would you like to show the people what the actual hardware looks like?
Yeah, Ronald. So I think if we can just make the screen a little bigger there, Ronald. So just so everyone knows, Ronald, I love the description of SD-WAN. So we're effectively an inverter for your connectivity, for your network. And essentially what I wanted to show you is actually our router that we apply. So this is what we supply our customers. And what you will notice is at the back there's a number of ports, and that's where we'll essentially add the different connectivity. So for example, Ronald, the ease of using this device is you simply drop it at the customer, plug it in, which is the power source. I think we all can do that. Then all we need to do is plug in the various connection types that we have on the site. So for example, at our office, we've got fiber coming in the one and business wireless coming in the other. And that's essentially all you have to do. And both connections will work at the same time. So if you've got one line that's 30 megabits per second and the other one is 20, the business will be utilizing 50 megabits per second continuously. So that is essentially what we supply in the service that we've run. Now, all the secret sauce and all of that, which is software defined, is what essentially you get due to our solution setup.
Correct. And when we actually take this to a customer site, the beauty about this is that when we deploy it and it's on site, we have got something called a key, which is a software key, which we apply to it. And it's within a minute, the service is up and running. So as long as you've got a broadband connection, you can make it a SD-WAN secure broadband connection within a couple of minutes. And that is it is a quick and easy way of configuring and making a very sophisticated network which is going to provide a business a reliable connection to actually improve their uptime, and improving their uptime, it improves their business, the employee productivity. And as well as you've got a couple of examples where it's crucial for a business to be online at certain times of the month.
Yeah, exactly. So my background is more finance and accounting. So I'll have a case of that. And the last time we spoke about being disconnected while you're paying salaries, or being disconnected while you're trying to submit your VAT return. And if your network goes down and you're trying to do it at the last second and it goes down for a few hours, you could end up with penalties, essentially costing you more than what the solution would ever cost you. But I think today our purpose was really to discuss the basics of SD-WAN, what it is for the people who needed to understand what SD-WAN really is in simple terms.
Okay, so great. I hope the man in the street was able to understand with my simple analogies what SD-WAN was, and hopefully you will join us in our next SD-WAN webinar, which we will be launching and doing pretty soon. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.